People who are adopted and track down your real parents. How did it play out? Satisfying? Disappointing? I'm an adoptive father. I'm my daughter's real parent. It was a closed adoption, so we don't have any information on her biological parents. I know it's nitpicky, but I've heard people tell me that my daughter isn't really mine, and it pisses me off. Never got in touch with my parents, but my biological siblings got in touch with me earlier this year. We had some interesting conversations, and what's interesting is that my birth parents really weren't screw-ups or drug addicts or anything like that. They just wanted their kid to grow up in a stable household, and since they were getting a divorce, and I was the product of an attempted reconciliation, they decided to adopt out. Talking with my birth siblings was interesting, but I couldn't really see them as my brothers and sisters, because I'm so tightly knit with my two younger sisters, one of whom is also adopted. They looked like me, sure, but I couldn't really see them as siblings. They also told me that my birth parents probably wouldn't want to interact with me, and I sort of left it there. I'm a big grizzly bear looking guy in a family full of people smaller than me, but I love them. Family isn't really about genetics anyway. I actually had a letter from my biological father from when I was 6 months old, and inside of it, he told me he loved me. After finishing reading that in the winter of 2011, I was 19 at the time, I was absolutely determined to find him. On the envelope to me was an address. I typed that address into Google, and the adoption agency that my adoption was conducted through came up. I emailed the lady who was in charge of the agency asking for information on my birth father. After a few very long months, she emailed me back with a name. She had everything on him that I could want in terms of contacting him. She had said that the reason it took so long to find him was because she had to confirm that it was in fact him, and he didn't see the message she sent him on Facebook until later. Anyway, I had his contact info, and I found him on Facebook. He and I were chatting for months on end to find out about each other, and we decided to meet up in my hometown. I was away at college at the time, and my hometown was halfway between his town and my college town. So we meet up, and it's incredible. Everything I've ever wanted to know gets answered for me: siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, everything. Well, his kids, my half-siblings, didn't know about my existence. Later on that summer, he messages me on Facebook, saying that he and his wife are going to be telling the kids about me very soon. Within 24 hours, I've received friend requests from all of them. About a week and a half later, I drove down to their house to meet the entire family. I spent 3 days there, meeting all of my relatives. I message with them on Facebook all of the time, and visit frequently, 3 or 4 times a year. I'll actually be going to stay with them for a week during the 4th of July, and I'm stoked. Also, I do not consider his kids as my half-siblings. They are my siblings, and I'm their sibling. I would not trade my relationship I have with them for anything. I was adopted at birth. I can't remember a specific time that I asked if I was adopted, or when my parents told me. I've just always known. My birth parents were both 18-wheeler truck drivers with not much of a permanent address, so they decided to put me up for adoption. Growing up, they would send birthday or Christmas cards every few years, and then I stopped hearing from them completely for about 5 years. One day I got a random phone call from my birth father stating that my birth mom had lung cancer and she didn't have long to live, and if I was ever going to come meet them, now would be the time. I was devastated that my birth mom was so sick, and that these were the terms in which I was going to meet them. They moved into their parents' house in Ohio when they passed. My adopted parents have always been supportive of me having a relationship with my biological parents, and understood that I wanted to go meet my family. They went with me, and we flew to Ohio a few days after the phone call. We stayed in a hotel that night, and the next day I went to meet my biological parents. I will never forget that day, pulling up to their small one-story house with a fenced-in front yard. I got out of the car and they were there waiting for me on the front porch. It was weird, like I know these people, but have never met them. I immediately felt a deep connection with them. It's weird finally seeing the genetics you come from for the first time. My birth mom looked very sick, but she still never stopped smiling, and cooked one of the best roast beefs I have ever had. I ended up meeting my whole extended family that day. I found out I have 5 half brothers and sisters, and that I'm and uncle. I never expected that, and my young nieces and nephews were so excited to meet me. I was overwhelmed with emotion and love for these people I hardly knew. I'm so glad I got that opportunity to meet them, especially my birth mom. My birth mom passed away November 27th, 2011. I unfortunately was unable to make it to the funeral, and I haven't been able to bring myself to go see her grave or contact my birth father or family. I have been to a therapist about this, and I plan on finally going up there this November, on the anniversary of her passing. It is something I need to do for closure. Thank you for reading my long rant. I've never really told this story before. I'm really hoping to reconnect with my birth family. I would really enjoy having them in my life again. My best friend was adopted at a very young age. She got information from the adoption agency about her birth mother and older brother. She looked up her brother on Facebook and arranged a meeting with him. That went extremely well. They immediately bonded. She got her birth mother's phone number and called her. They talked a few times, exchanging their life stories and hopes to meet each other soon. Birth mother lived in a different state. After a few weeks of talking over the phone, they set up a weekend to meet. The first day they met was filled with hugs, joy, and my friend got to meet her half brothers. The next few days she got to see how her birth mother really was. She ignored my friend after the first day and was incredibly rude. My friend returned home and realized her birth mother wasn't all she hoped she would be, so she stepped back with contacting her, but stayed in contact with her brothers. Her mom, adopted mother, is a wonderful woman, and she now realizes how lucky she is to have her. She was disappointed in knowing that she was put up for adoption because her birth mother is a piece of shit, but she is happy she now has a fantastic mother. Adopted at birth. I'm 26 currently and have never wanted to know anything about my biological parents. Last Father's Day, of all days, right, I received a Facebook message from a random man asking if I was adopted, was a few details of his daughter's dog. They all matched, and boy did I look like him. We talked a bit. He sent me a picture of his daughter at birth. Yep, that was me. Still not wanting to believe this random man was my biological father, I told him I would contact that adoption center with his name to see if they would give me any information. My adoption was a closed private adoption. The center called me back 3 days later to confirm that this man was my biological father. They confirmed my biological mother's name as well, all over the phone without any verification of anything. I was dumbfounded. I cried, was anger, about every emotion you could think of, informed the biological father that I was indeed his biological daughter, then was told I have 2 biological brothers, one barely a year older than me, and one 4 years younger. Biological mother also has a slew of other kids, as does he. Came to a total of 2 siblings, and 9 half siblings. I grew up an only child. The kicker was that the biological mother is, and always has been, a drug addict. She lost all her kids. Every one of my siblings is completely fucked up. They all have kids. My teenage half sister has a 4-year-old. Most have been in jail and have no contact with their parents. I spoke to the biological mother twice. She gave off the piece of shit vibe the second I started talking to her on Facebook, so I blocked her and forgot that ever happened. The biological father wasn't much better emo. He was with a new woman with 3 kids and barely speaks to his biological children from other women. I grew up in a close family. We talk all the time and are involved in each other's lives. This guy claimed to want to get to know me and meet me, talk to me on the phone, blah, blah, blah. But it just never followed through. So I cut those ties and haven't talked to him since either. I have talked to most of my siblings. The younger BO brother and I talk every few months. Half siblings and I talk every few days. I really wanted to get to know them and build relationships with these people that are blood related to me, but they have such terrible sad lives that we really can't keep a conversation going. So it ends up just being a few sentences exchanged every few days about how their lives are crap and what is going wrong now. I'm a positive person, in a good place in my life, and my husband is worried I'm going to get taken advantage of. So I keep my distance. All in all, it was a terribly disappointing situation and I wish it had never happened. My advice, based on experience, Prepare yourself for the worst. Lower your expectations. Example, consider the possibility that you are the product of rape. I was born in a time-place where abortions were illegal. I was in no way prepared for that kind of info / had never considered that possibility. So I found my parents on Facebook a few years back. I was able to find their full names because the adoption agency that sent me letters from them made a mistake and forgot to remove their last name and address for privacy reasons. I sent my birth mother a message on Facebook and ended up talking to her. My birth mother actually married my biological father and had 2 more kids after me, so it's kind of like the family I would have belonged to if I wouldn't have been adopted. I met her once, and she is nice. It's a little weird honestly. I consider my mom and dad who adopted me to be my real parents and my birth mom and dad to be my biological parents. My mother was adopted. In 2009 her adoptive parents passed away and she decided to in touch with her biological family. It was a very emotional experience. Lots of tears from all involved when we met her bio parents and her 3 brothers and sisters and all their kids. It was crazy to learn where our looks, mannerisms, and even certain personality quirks came from. We are still in regular contact with everyone. They will never replace my grandparents, and we don't have a whole lot in common with them, but they are definitely family. I know it isn't intentional, but I cannot help but be a little upset every time I hear someone refer to my biological parents as my real parents. My real parents are the people that raised me and supported me throughout my life. My adoptive parents. Biological parents is a much better term. I contacted the agency a while ago to get my mother's info. I got her name and her age. After looking online, I was sad to find very little. Flash forward last May, my new BF tracked her down. After I showed him the papers, I saw her on FB and without a doubt, knew. She looked like me, had the same sense of humor, had 2 kids. So I stayed back, out of fear. A few weeks later I get a notification on my Pinterest. You need to search for my real name to get it. I have a tiny group of friends following. It was her. Then the FB request. She was searching for me too. After a funny and awkward chat, OMG do you know me? OMG I'm shitting bricks. We called each other and cried, laughed and I spoke to my new half sister. My BF was there, holding my hand, when I met her after 31 years. I was so nervous I felt sick. I was always told she gave me up, not because she wanted to, because an 18-year-old girl could not provide me the kind of life she wanted for me. I never blamed her, never felt abandoned, and loved her right away. Loved my new extended family right away. My mom has a life similar to my parents. My dad and stepmom haven't met her yet, but are so excited and happy, country living etc. Haven't met / spoke to my dad. I saw him on FB, but not sure if he ever told his spouse about me. I respect his privacy. My mom's trying to talk to him via mutual friends. From only child. I have at least 2 siblings. A bunch of moms. Life is happiest than it's been in a while. My birth mother found me on the internet in 2005. I had registered on adoption.com 10 years earlier. She had realized she was pregnant after she had broken up with my father and he had moved overseas. She never even told him and he died in 2000 never knowing I existed. I will never meet her again as no one in her family, including possibly her husband, knows about me. We exchange emails and pictures. I despise my HS graduation picture. Worst picture of me ever taken. She found it online and sent me hers from 20 years earlier. We are twins. It is uncanny. She hates hers too. The funny thing is I did some research on Ancestry.com for my dad who has a very unusual Hungarian name, so now I know I'm part Hungarian. Turns out he married and had a son who has the same name as me. I emailed that to my birth mother and she wrote back and said she too had another son and he has the same name as me too. Yes, it is a common American name, but still it is funny that I have 2 brothers and we all have the same name. I'm now thinking of contacting my dad's son. I have survived cancer and would love to have a little more medical history. Found my mom and older brother. Neither of them wanted anything to do with me, but it's cool my adoptive parents are my real family. I was adopted from Ukraine. I want desperately to find my birth mother, but I fear that it is nearly impossible, even if I have her name, just because of the language barrier and little to no technology in the poor parts of Ukraine. Just a FYI to anyone in this thread, for biological parents, do not use the term real parents. People who take care of you as your parents are your real parents. To avoid confusion, I recommend using the terms biological parents and adoptive parents. I have an honest question for anyone else who was adopted, like myself. If you have sought out your biological parents, why? I was adopted nearly immediately after birth, and have known only one family my entire life. I have one sister, also adopted. My mom passed away when I was 19, currently 27, and I'm still close with my dad. I've honestly never even had the slightest urge to seek out my biological parents, and this seems to mystify people when I tell them. For one, it seems like it would be insulting and awkward for my real family, and yes, they are my real family. Second, my birth parents have been complete strangers to me now for 27 years. I could have bumped into them a dozen times now for all I know. They made a mistake in high school and made the responsible decision to ensure I had a better life, and I did, and for that I'm forever grateful, but that's where our connection ends. Like I said, I personally am content in my decision, but I honestly would love to hear opinions from both sides of this. I have 2 children, one who was born to me, and one who was adopted. Past tense, was adopted. Adoption is an event which took place in court, a one-time thing. He was adopted. Secondly, real parents? Seriously? Which parent is real? The one who wipes snotty noses, kisses boo-boos, cooks healthy food, gives love and discipline, and takes care of the child, day in and day out, or the parent who gave birth to him? We are both real. The correct term is birth parent or biological parent. I don't intend to be rude, this kind of thing just pushes my buttons, because I work my ass off being a good mom to my teenaged son, and I find it demoralizing that the person who gave birth to him is often called his real mom.